week was pretty busy. Um, and of course, we tested negative for COVID, and everybody on the women's soccer team. So practices have officially started, which is excellent. A couple football guys here in the classroom as well. Can everybody hear me with my mask on at home via Zoom? Jordan, can you hear me? Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. So a couple updates. One, I think midterm grades were due either this morning or last night. I submitted everything yesterday morning, so we don't have any issues there. Once again, if you have any grade reports or anything with your coaches or administrators, whatever, don't hesitate to just come and find me. Whether you just send me an email or stop by my desk, I'm happy to get those done. I had a couple track and cross country, one football guy stopped by. So whatever you guys need, just let me know, and I'm happy to manage that for you. I think that's all the housekeeping stuff. We will, now that we're about a month out from our interview presentations and papers, we're going to establish some breakout rooms. That way you can just kind of bounce some ideas off of each other, kind of give everybody a status report on what you're thinking, some of the ideas that you have. We'll only spend like 5-10 minutes, so just kind of take as much time as you need. Don't be afraid to ask some questions, get some ideas from, other people, and then we'll start the lecture today. So I'm going to assign some breakout rooms here, and then we'll go ahead and start the lecture. Okay, so we'll go 6 breakout rooms. It should be 2 to 3 people per breakout room. And you guys can just talk amongst yourself. Um, where's she from? Peoria?
Yeah,
Is that not too far?
that's like 10, 15 minutes.
Okay. Nice. What about you, Freddie?
My brother, I kind of thought about, he works for, Hoka.
Okay, nice.
So-
The shoes, yeah.
Yeah, so he actually went to Wartburg, and I kind of like to talk to him how, because he was a communications major, and I mean, I guess he's always liked running, but I kind of wanted to talk to him about like, if he has to like deal with like, has like connections with like athletes and stuff, and if he has to deal with that, since he's kind of the guy that has to go around and travel all over the place to basically teach the stores about the shoe and
Right. Oh, that's awesome. Where does he live?
Colorado.
Okay. Yeah, that's the brand of shoes that I run.
Yeah, that's like the only shoe I'll run in now too.
Yeah,
After
they're
I started wearing them.
crazy expensive, but they're worth it. How long ago did you graduate from here?
Honestly, 2011.
Gotcha. A couple years ago then.
Yeah.
You guys been enjoying class so far? It's been okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been interesting. It's kind of nice because it's something different from some like exercise science. All I do is do
This stuff.
my science classes. So this is kind of nice to like
Yeah,
see a different side of the sports industry and stuff like that.
for sure. Yeah. So when is your first football game? Right, you're playing 3 or is it 4?
3.
Okay.
27 March.
Okay.
First one.
Yeah, we're the same. It's crazy to think like our last competitive game was like over 400 days ago.
Yeah,
Like so crazy.
it's like I don't know. It kind of sucks that this has become like the new normal.
I know. Hopefully, though, I mean, I think if everything continues to trend the way it has been, I think we're gonna be, maybe not fully out from under it, but at least like competing in our normal seasons this upcoming fall. And then, hopefully next spring we'll be fully back, but who knows? Been saying that for a long time, right?
Hopefully everybody can stay healthy too.
Yeah.
Since it's gonna be kind of close around.
Yeah, things have been pretty good around campus, though. I was a little nervous, kind of after, kind of the first 3 weeks or so last fall. Like, what was the winter going to be looking like? But for the most part, not terrible. So, have you guys had to deal with COVID with football? Like a lot of guys coming in and out of quarantine and all that stuff.
Last fall, more so in the fall.
Okay.
Recently, it's been good.
Good. But yeah, it's been pretty isolated so far. This this semester.
I got proper gold. I've never had.
Jack, who was trying to break into your Zoom call?
I've heard mixed things.
My nephew.
That's awesome.
Yeah, this was like my only day off and I needed to get stuff from home, so
Yeah.
yeah.
You could have joined us for
Yeah,
class.
to go to.
Said he could have joined us for class.
He had to go to his nephew's house. Because my mom's working at home right now. So she needs some time away from the kids.
So Hannah, how's everybody in the women's basketball world doing? And no response. Or escalator.
How many people are in the classroom right now?
We have 2. I was expecting there to be more people. Everybody was asking about it last week, but only 2 of us here.
Tragic.
You guys probably realized it's better to just stay at home so you can actually do some other stuff on lectures. It's funny because fewer and fewer webcams are turning on. Okay, we'll give it another 20 seconds, then I'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so hopefully, I think everybody's back. Hopefully there is some decent discussion, at least kind of talk about some ideas of who you're wanting to kind of interview and connect with during that. Once again, I want that assignment to be something that's, pretty informative for you to, just be able to kind of connect with somebody that you think is, relevant with what you want to do, whether that's, coaching, whether that's, marketing, admin, whatever, I just want it to be a kind of a practical experience for you. So once again, we're about a month out from that. I think it's April 6th and 7th or 5th and 6th, something like that, to where, we'll kind of be going over the presentations and of course the, submitting your paper and everything like that. So kind of getting closer. Once again, I think the key to that is if you invest the time to be able to kind of get organized for it, the better and smoother that's going to go. So just keep that in mind. But we'll go ahead and get started with the lecture today. This one I think is especially relevant because for most of us that work within kind of the sports industry, I think this is a really easy, first step to get in some capacity. So youth sports will be the discussion for today and kind of the history behind that. So we'll get started. So first, general trends within kind of youth sports. In 17 and 1800s, there weren't really a whole lot of opportunities to compete. Obviously at that point in time, people and settlers were just trying to establish, their towns and their cities and things like that. So certainly not a whole lot of extra time to be able to, compete and establish leagues and all of that stuff. But as we progressed, farther down the line, they certainly have become very popular within the culture, okay? Native Americans used sports, especially lacrosse, kind of up in the Northeast, kind of New England area. Those games where lacrosse was kind of used as a way to settle disputes, certainly whether that was acquiring new land and...
I don't think you're sharing your screen.
How's that? that better? Okay, sorry about that. Can everybody see it in presentation mode? I know we've had issues with that. Jack, can you see that?
It does not look good.
Jordan, what about for you? Is it just Jack?
It's small. It's really small.
Okay, I'm just going to leave it in.
It works for like half a second, I think, when you're going out of it. I have no clue.
I'll just leave it in this view. Can everybody see it nice and large?
Yep.
Yeah, that's better.
Yep.
Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, carrying on, as Native Americans continued to use it, just kind of settle disputes. It was very popular, and then of course it transitioned into modern games. It was something that's very popular out on the East Coast. It's growing here. We of course have a team here at Wartburg for that. As things continued to develop, we had different clubs and fraternities start to form in different societies. Okay, there on the next slide here, there's going to be a couple different examples of those kind of organizations, but a big one was the YMCA. Okay, the Young Men Christian Association or something like that. But that was a real popular one where it allowed people in different cities to congregate and enjoy activities. Okay, certainly baseball, that's a real popular one in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Soccer, different things like that. But originally, it started off just kind of as contests with, fishing and hunting and shooting, different things like that didn't necessarily require a whole lot of equipment, right? At that point in time in the 1800s, being able to hunt and being able to fish certainly was a way to support your family. So that was a real simple one because everybody had access to those different types of, equipment to be able to manage that. And oftentimes some of these contests would be, held at different, fairs or public gatherings in communities. And then later on, certainly, between community and community or town to town, maybe a county fair or something like that, where, 3 or 4 different communities would get together to be able to, spend some time when they weren't, trying to work on the farm or whatever. Oh, and then physical education, forgot to mention that one. Physical education started in the early 1900s, and of course, for most of us, that is a real relevant area now. Within schools and communities. Okay, once again, here are some examples. You have the YMCA, Young Men's Christian Association, Young Women's Christian Association, Pop Warner Football, Little League, all of those different stuff within within communities. I think if you talk to a lot of people, and I'm sure everybody can relate, at some point or the other, being able to start your sporting career at a similar type organization like one of those, whether that was, the local rec league at the YMCA or something like that. Certainly for me, when I started to play soccer, that was, one of the first stops for me in with my sporting career, and certainly I'm sure it was pretty similar to everybody else. Oh, the Boys and Girls Club is another pretty applicable one as well. Okay, recent developments, of course, you know, as one of the big conversations happening in today's society, okay, just how large and how big youth sports have gotten, right? It's $1 billion industry, okay, especially within, you know, sports like basketball, AAU basketball, club soccer, you know, travel baseball, I'm trying to think of some others, swimming, all of those different types of sports. You know, there are these huge corporations and huge companies that are putting on camps and clinics and all of those. So that is, with the amount of interest that people are having in individual sports, you know, there's some real infrastructure to be able to support it. And I think certainly if kind of going over in a few slides upcoming, you'll kind of be able to gauge just the overall size and magnitude of the industry. Okay, so these are some of the questions that you need to kind of think about as we start discussing youth sports. Okay, how should we balance kind of the education aspect, or, you know, physical education, school sports, and then, you know, kind of that specialized environment where, you know, athletes are going and playing outside of school. Okay, so I'm a soccer coach. We'll talk about soccer, for example. There are, if you talk to a lot of coaches, okay, they almost feel as though, you know, high school sports, or excuse me, high school soccer isn't necessarily as, you know, competitive as club soccer. Okay, now there's some truth to that, but also, you know, for the vast majority of, you know, high school programs, it is a pretty good level, you know. Now, I think because, you know, so many of the high schools across the country, Iowa is one of the few, actually Virginia as well, where I went to high school. High school soccer is in the spring, okay? So, you know, being some colleges are actually going to be able to recruit at high school events just because for probably 85% of the country, you know, soccer's played during the fall. So it just kind of automatically lines up where the high school season and club season you know, don't necessarily line up, and allows college coaches more access to club level games in the spring. Okay, it's a little bit different here in Iowa. Iowa, Nebraska, South Carolina, Virginia are 4 places I have lived that play high school soccer in the spring, where it's pretty difficult for college coaches to get out to club events in those states just because it's their main competition. Okay. Who should police or who should govern these youth sports organizations? Okay, should there be any at all? I think the textbook talks about AAU basketball and kind of some of the rules and some of the conflicts that, you know, basketball programs at the college level, you know, interfering with youth sports or youth programs across the country. Okay, that's a real, you know, that's a real relevant question that's attached to youth sports. And then, of course, you know, who has access to these, you know, specialized youth sporting companies or programs or teams? You know, oftentimes, if they're, you know, having to pay, you know, dues and membership fees and team fees, all of those different things that, you know, maybe not necessarily everybody's going to be able to afford within their family budget, okay? So that certainly can be limiting, and I think certainly within the soccer side of things, that is, the United States is one of the very few countries that has kind of that pay to play model. A lot of the other countries in the world don't necessarily have that. Okay, so some different categories within youth sports. One, you have communities, okay, community sports. So the definition there includes competitive activities and recreational aspects in schools, communities, and local sport organizations. Okay, so once again, that a good example there would be, you know, kind of like the, you know, Waverly Parks and Rec aspect within kind of the city council. Okay, a lot of cities and towns and organizations within local communities have different, you know, leagues or programs to be able to get kids involved. Okay, the next one, of course, the school aspect, whether that is, you know, programs like JV and varsity programs or club sports at, you know, the high school, college level, whatever. Okay, for example, my high school out in Virginia, they didn't have a varsity or JV level lacrosse program for men's and or the boys and girls, but they had a club level program for both genders, and they would travel around and almost play, you know, a 10-game schedule, something like that, with other high school programs, even though it wasn't necessarily a, you know, varsity sponsored sport at my school. So that's a good example of some different ways programs and schools are able to add sports. Okay, and then local sports organizations, that would be kind of your private, you know, sporting agencies, we'll say, that talk or that accompany, you know, youth sports. So club soccer, for example, you have Iowa Rush. In Ankeny, you have Vision Soccer Academy in Des Moines, Sporting Iowa, Sporting Omaha. Those are some of the, you know, club organizations that we recruit here at Wartburg. Okay, and of course, once again, that's not only limited to soccer. You know, that's hockey. You know, travel baseball. I don't know, did football have like travel teams like that? Not so much.
There is, but not great.
Okay.
Not a lot.
Gotcha. Certainly AAU basketball. And then, of course, you down below, you may have different categories within those organizations. Okay, so recreational sports, that may be, you know, ages, I don't know, 4 through 12, 4 through 13, where it's kind of the more, you know, formal structure and education aspect, teaching kids the rules of the game, you know, the laws of the game, you know, basic, simple strategies. And then, of course, you know, competitive sport, you know, as you start to get older and older and more competitive, that's pretty a simple and clear distinction between the two. Okay, so these are some of the examples that we have. Okay, so once again, you have the YMCA local leagues. You have the, you know, maybe the local police or fire department, you know, summer softball league or something like that. AAU, that's real relevant within some of the sports, especially basketball. USU soccer, once again, that's a massive organization within the soccer community. There's a ton of clubs across the country that have, you know, teams that play in the USU soccer sponsored events. This isn't necessarily super important to memorize or write down, just a couple examples. Okay, some clear distinctions that need to be made. Okay, so within spectator and or spectators and consumers. Okay, within professional sports. Okay, sport organizations are treating the audience as spectators, okay? Yes, they are consuming sports, but they're not actively participating in the event itself. Okay, so when we talk with my buddy Travis, one of the companies that he has spent time with will actually go and, attend a sporting event and, capture some of the sponsorship, signage that's in a stadium and trying to figure out, what companies best, partner with different organizations. Are they, really relevant if you're at a, Ohio State football game and, they're looking at, I don't even know, some financial investment type sponsor, okay? Maybe not necessarily, the best, maybe it's, Ford or Toyota, something like that. That may be a little bit better if the audience that's attending a game, are kind of more young professionals that maybe don't necessarily have, the hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars to be able to invest in the stock market or something like that. Okay, that's just a quick example. Okay, now within youth sports, okay, very much, people are consumers, okay? Parents are dropping their kids off, at camps and clinics and working on, wanting their kids to have a meaningful, sport experience, okay? So we're very much consuming the actual sport or activity as participants, okay? So that's kind of the important distinction to kind of use when you're starting to think about some of these things. Okay, so we have some of the concerns or main goals of youth sporting organizations. Okay, one, attracting and keeping new participants, okay? Within youth sports, if you have a very loyal, pool of people that are always, signing up for different events that you're hosting, that's going to make your job very, very easy, okay? Now, it's more difficult when, people aren't necessarily having a great experience and you have to go out and work really hard to be able to find other people to sign up for your event or your league. That's a very different story. It's very challenging, okay? You'll find people and families tend to be very, very loyal. If they're having a very good experience and, they feel like they're getting a lot out of the individual event or the activity or the league, okay, they're going to feel inclined to stay, okay? Being able to come up with different programs or activities, whether that's, once again, I've thrown camps and clinics out, maybe, during the spring and fall, an organization has a well-established league where, they're able to play 6, 7, 8 games, one every other week or so. And maybe they don't necessarily have a program during the summer, during summer vacation for everybody. Maybe a decent opportunity would be to come up and develop a camp and clinic system. Being able to keep people engaged during that, dead period or that quiet time. Okay, once again, time and place for activities. Certainly here in Iowa, if you have an indoor training space, that is gold. With the winters here in the Midwest, it's pretty challenging to have continuous year-round, activities for, participants. It just physically can't do it when it's negative 20 degrees out. Okay, so that's certainly a challenge that you have. Cost and pricing, of course. You know, there's very few people that are going to be able to spend $1,400 on a 1-week camp, you know, during the summer. Okay, have to be able to figure out a consistent and relevant price point for the people that you're, you know, trying to, you know, attract and gather info to. Okay, so when we're talking about the benefits of participation within youth sports, okay, there's a bunch. One, of course, have the physical benefits of it, okay, lowering, you know, heart disease and some of those other conditions. Okay, being able to, you know, kind of have that character building aspect that we've talked about in the past couple of chapters. I think it was, you know, maybe chapter 3 or chapter 4. I can't exactly remember, but, you know, being able to have, you know, active kids working within, you know, groups on a team, being able to build, you know, interpersonal skills and different things like that to be able to really build, you know, a fully functioning adult, okay, later in life. Okay? Certainly the family aspect of it, okay? If, you know, teams are having games on the weekends, you know, whether that's your, you know, brother, your sister, your parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, whatever, you know, they're going to have to, you know, maybe travel to that game, you know, maybe drive the 30 minutes across town to play, you know, the Blue Bombers or whatever, the Green Giants, whatever. Okay, that's, once again, all quality family time, okay? From my own experience, we spent a lot of time in the car, you know, growing up. Okay, going to different showcases, you know, whatever. And then, of course, a sense of community, right? Especially within the aspect of, you know, high school sports. Okay, that is, you know, just a huge, you know, thing that people gravitate toward. You know, being able to, you know, read articles in the newspaper, being able to, you know, interact with coaches out on, you know, on a Saturday night after a football game out at, you know, the local restaurant or something like that. That is, that's a real, real large aspect of youth sports that I'm sure everybody kind of, you know, has thought about in the back of their mind, but maybe not necessarily, you know, always think of. Okay, so within this, you know, once again, youth sports and just sports in general is a billion-dollar industry, multiple billions. Okay, so because it is such a grand or large thing to, you know, look at, it's really difficult to, you know, have an accurate estimate or an accurate guess of, you know, the total number of participants. Okay, now there's a couple, you know, couple different creative ways that, you know, companies and different things like that are able to you know, guess, but we don't have like a definitive number of, you know, total number of athletes. Okay. Now, in the book, it kind of talks about one of the large model or one of the main differences between specifically kind of youth sports in Canada and the United States. And certainly it's not just Canada. I think a lot of a lot of the countries in Europe, follow, follow this type of model. But with one of the main differences within kind of the Canada model or European model is a lot of the youth sports are actually organized through governing bodies. Okay, and here in the U.S., it's kind of left to kind of more individual private organizations. Okay, so for example, they talked about Canadian hockey, kind of the Canadian Hockey Federation, where a lot of those teams are organized and affiliated and receiving funding from the larger organization, and you're playing different clubs like that within it. Here in the U.S., every community doesn't necessarily have a club soccer team, or not everybody has a high school soccer team, whatever. But there's less funding by some of the national sporting organizations here in the U.S. than there are in other places. Okay, certainly within the realm of soccer, over in England, for example, almost every community has kind of a professional soccer team, professional soccer organization where they have academies where there are probably 15, 20 players per team being able to go through, receive professional coaching. And then on top of that, there are, kind of organized, amateur leagues and different things like that. The U.S. doesn't necessarily have the same type of structure, but certainly kind of similar type opportunities, just, organized a little bit differently. Okay, one of the ways that we can at least kind of have at least a ballpark estimate of the number of participants is kind of using the sporting good manufacturers, okay? Looking and seeing what items and how many items are being sold, whether that's, okay, how many soccer balls, how many footballs are being sold each year. You can kind of have at least some idea of, the total number of, participants over, the course of, a year, 2 years, maybe a season or so. Okay, and this is just kind of a graph that kind of outlines that. And kind of already touched on this a little bit. Just discussing some of the main differences between other areas outside the U.S. Okay. Talked about some of this stuff down at the bottom already. Okay, for-profit and non-for-profit organizations. Okay, still having different people to help organize things, but not necessarily going after a huge, more volunteer-based rather than collecting a pure profit, things like that. Okay, once again, talking about going through the federal aspect of sporting clubs in Canada. I think in the book they almost exclusively talked about kind of the way hockey was organized in Canada and how the Canadian Hockey Federation, kind of interacted within that. Okay, that's not necessarily super important, but I'm not going to test you or quiz you on it. Okay, now management challenges. Okay, this is very, very relevant just because there are so many different, structures and way organizations, use to gather and collect resources. Okay, so Okay, so especially kind of talking about the varied structure, some organizations are going to be very heavily reliant on kind of volunteers, okay? You know, parent aspect, okay? The parent aspect of youth coaching or youth sports, okay? Being able to have 1, 2, maybe 3 parents to really help out with you know, practices during the course of the week, you know, games in the weekend. Some organizations have, you know, specific coaches to help manage, you know, the kids within that community or that team type structure. Okay, there's not necessarily right or wrong way to go about it. You know, certainly for me, and I'm sure a lot of people in the class can relate. You know, my dad was one of my first coaches. Okay, he coached me kind of elementary school, and then kind of once I got into more competitive stuff in middle school and high school, of course, working at everything got busy for him, but that's kind of at the point where I made that transition from almost kind of that recreational aspect, you know, honing skills, developing skills, and learning the rules and laws of the game, and then really transitioning into kind of that, you know, individual sport performance, high-level competition. You know, I think a lot of us can relate kind of around that high school aspect as well. You know, certainly that transition from like that middle school to high school level sports, it's pretty different, okay? Okay, so once again, when we talk about planning, okay, we talk about planning a lot in the sport industry, okay? Being able to identify, you know, the different things that you need in order to, you know, run a league or running a event. Okay, once again, going back to the, you know, recruiting aspect, being able to find, you know, a couple parents, maybe an older brother, older sister that has some good experience. Okay, I'm sure you have some experience with that as well. Being able to just help out, okay, whether that's on a volunteer basis or, you know, being able to, you know, maybe you're a college kid, you're, you know, a part of the football team and one of the, you know, local high schools in the area is looking for, you know, kind of a volunteer or a paid assistant coach during, you know, the spring and summer for, you know, spring and summer workouts, whatever it is, right? We all have, I'm sure, either have individual experience or know somebody that has experience within kind of a setup like that, okay? And then, of course, being able to, once you have your pool of people that's kind of assigned to help out, being able to find and establish kind of the training opportunities to be able to, you know, help with their knowledge of, you know, coaching in the individual aspect, whether that's the technical aspect or strategy aspect, you know, safety protocols, all of those different types of things, okay? Give me a couple seconds to write that down. Wrapping up here fairly quick. We should have, you know, I don't know, 10, 15 more minutes. Okay. Transitioning into some of the, you know, adult opportunities, okay? Within sports, okay? We have, you know, the W here on campus is a perfect example, okay? If you get up at, you know, whether that's in the evening or in the morning and you get up and kind of walk around here in the W, you're going to see a ton of different exercise classes, okay, instructional classes, things to enhance, you know, just general fitness. You have pickleball leagues. I'm trying to think of some other, the Try by Night here on campus, right? They have a mastery swim class and a spin class that allow you to kind of train for the triathlon that's hosted here on campus, okay? You have intramural type programs. Certainly, I'm sure
a lot of you have participated in intramural, programs here on campus at some point during your college career. I know I did when I was in school. Volleyball was a particular favorite of mine. Okay? And that's just not limited, that's not limited to the college campus. There is, volleyball leagues in different communities, here in Waverly is a good example, right? You have, during the summer, you have fast pitch and slow pitch softball leagues. I'm not sure if you've seen those around, if you spent a summer here during Waverly. And then, of course, you have different tournaments and events, that, that are held over, maybe a long weekend. Okay. Certainly within kind of the soccer community, when I go out recruiting, those are kind of more tournament showcase style to where, maybe games start at Friday morning and then wrap up Sunday night, or like over President's Day weekend, games started on Friday and they ended Monday night. Different things like that. People are pretty creative. It's not reinventing the wheel. Okay, but that's certainly not just limited to, youth sporting events. There's adult level competition events as well. CrossFit, like the open CrossFit competitions. That's for adults. Different things like that. Kind of building off of that as well, you have different, opportunities for youth outside of kind of competition or outside of, just leagues and tournaments and things like that. You have different classes. You have swim classes. You have camps, clinics, which we've already talked about. After school programs, that's a real big one that I haven't talked about yet. Once again, that's there's a aspect of that here at the W. You have the little daycare center downstairs. You have, just kind of that community hour or two from, 3 to 6, where there's just a ton of, kids after school that run down and, start to shoot hoops. That's an important aspect. And there's just some additional stuff to think about there with some review questions. Okay, so that is all I have for you today. Good. I thought that was a decent chapter to kind of talk about, just because, once again, for people that are wanting to get into the sport industry, that is a very easy way to get your foot in the door, to be able to have some good, some good experience, whether that's, working summer camps at the local high school, or looking at, different internship opportunities within some of these organizations to, help scheduling or manage leagues or something like that. There's certainly a lot of opportunities available within that. Okay, so for Thursday, I don't have anything like no homework or anything like that for you on Thursday. Just be another lecture. We have Ben Mochin's interview coming up. I believe that's next week, maybe the 9th or 8th, something like that. I'm going to try and squeeze an exam 2 here at some point. I'm going to bump it back again. Was it later this week? Was it Thursday that I had?
It was supposed to be Thursday.
I will reschedule chapter or the second exam for you. Last 2 weeks I've been kind of out of the loop with stuff, just a lot of things going on in the office, but I'm not going to surprise you with it. I'll give you plenty of notice, give you plenty of preparation, an exam review or whatever for that. So
That's all I have for you. I'll stick around once again if you have any individual questions. But have a good week, and feel free to come into the classroom on Thursday if your last name is K through Z. Okay? Have a good one. You guys have practice today? Nice. Good deal. Well, thanks for coming, and we'll see you via Zoom.
For the interview, is there a set guideline for what
Yeah,
you
too,
want on
guys.
it? Or
Thanks again.
is there a set guideline for what you want on it?